hit it now.
Too late now.
Hit the record button.
I hit it. This is Pop Culture Yearbook. On this show, we pick pieces of pop culture that were important to us in a given year. We then discuss memories and dig into those movies, albums, shows, and more. I'm Brad.
I'm Pete.
And I'm Giff.
And we started a new new year last week.
Mm-hmm.
We're in 2020 here. So not a lot of memories in this year. As you know, it's pandemic year. It's
a lot of staying in, a lot of staying home.
And our next 3 episodes are going to really nail home that idea of staying in and doing nothing, because you'll see there's a theme to the choices.
Played a lot of chess.
Yeah, there you go.
You could have learned, like, do puzzles, play chess, learn all kinds of things.
Unlike Taylor Swift, none of us created a album or two, that were critically acclaimed. We just sat back and watched other people create.
We really could have got to work on those drums, Giff, and come up with something. Pete could have played his trombone.
Right? You know what we did do? We started podcasting.
Well, that's true. We did. Yep. We created something artistically that I think is pretty happy. Pretty happy.
If they make a Netflix series about our expertise on podcasting, what would it be called?
This is great. Why is nobody listening? That's what it's called.
No, they're listening. So speaking of that, we want to always start off with a shout out to our classmates who have taken the time to not only go to our Buy Me a Coffee page, but actually supported us. And we brought that up before, and we love them. And there's a couple people we want to specifically bring up here. Gifford, I think you wanted to bring one up first, because he is one of our classmates.
Yes. Yeah, Johnny is continuing to tweet out at us. One of the highlights of my week, every week after a new episode comes out, is going through Johnny's Twitter feed and finding his hashtags that he puts together.
Yes.
After listening to the episode. It makes me laugh every time. I look forward to it every week. So, Johnny, if you're listening, that is something I love to read, and please keep it up, because that's a lot of fun.
Please. I agree. I love them. They are hilarious, and it's just fun to go through and see which little things stand out in the episode that he thinks of to write down.
Thing about
some
Johnny
of them
is
aren't
he's everywhere.
Expect, maybe.
Yeah.
He's always everywhere too. If you go to a Twins game, you can buy a drink from him. If you go to a Vikings game, you can buy a drink from him there too. He's always working all of those major sporting events.
Yep.
As a bartender.
And he's tough to pick out in a crowd, being so short as he is.
Right. You can pick him out from a mile away.
Speaking of last week's episode and feedback, I just wanted to bring up a little story today. So I have a coworker who listens every week, and she had mentioned that, or she wrote on social media, this was like a great episode, and so that was nice to see. But today she brought up how she had to go home because her daughter was sick at school, and she just turned on the Taylor Swift episode, and she needed it to feel good, and it because she had all this stuff going on. And she did exactly what we talk about and hope happens. After every song we talked about, she would stop and listen to that song, and she'd go back and forth. And I just thought that was so cool and so nice. And so, there are people that do listen out there, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So,
yes.
So thanks,
good
Jill.
To listen to.
It's awesome.
That is a nice story.
Yeah, isn't it nice? I mean, it just made me so happy to hear that.
We are doing good in the world. This is what we were called to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, like you said, during the pandemic, what did everybody decide to do? Because you couldn't leave. What'd you do during that time?
You watch television.
You watch TV, and our next 3 episodes are all
a lot of
movies
related
to TV.
Yep.
And some movies, yes, but there weren't any new movies coming out. So
not that many. No,
you weren't it was all TV that was coming out, and it was great stuff. So tonight we're going to start with Gift's pick.
Yep.
So why don't you tell us which one that is and hit it off?
All right. So late in 2020, October 23rd of 2020, Queen's Gambit. The Queen's Gambit came out on Netflix. So this was, I love on Netflix how they show like what's trending now, and you always have that list. And honestly, that's where I saw it. And my wife and I can't quite remember if it was in one day we watched all 7 episodes, or if we started it and then finished it the next day on a weekend.
Funny you say that, because we actually did that with a show we're going to talk about in 2 weeks. But I was thinking of that as I was watching this again here. This feels like one that'd be harder to watch all at once, because the episodes are so long and they kind of get to be like, I watched it over about 2 or 3 days, which doesn't take long, but it felt like you need that little break every once in a while, and it could be kind of a slog to watch all of them at one time. But
oh, really? Oh,
I don't know. It's just kind of the way I felt this time going through it.
I rewatched this, I think, in 2 days. I mean, it was
because there's so much bad stuff that happens, and so many, it's just like you might need to take a breather for a minute and then start a new one a little bit later.
It is emotionally trying. This show is.
Yes. Yep. I'll give you that.
I wasn't like, my point was not to say that it was a bad show or anything, because I loved it. It was just that maybe that means it's that good of a show, because I need.
Well, I was just going to say it means almost the opposite, because you get so emotionally invested in it that it makes you feel that way, and that's how I think you meant that comment.
Thank you, Pete.
Yes. I don't have any analogies like I did in the LA Story episode.
Oh, they might come later.
They'll come to you. They'll come to you.
Yeah.
So this show, when it came out, it came out on October 23rd. By November 23rd.
Oh, you know what? By the way, that's my wife's birthday.
Happy birthday, Jenny. On which one, October or November?
October 23rd.
October 23rd. All right, I'm writing it down on my calendar.
Okay.
So 1 month later, it had been watched by 62 million households. And it was the top streamed show for 3 weeks straight, from October 26th to November 15th. And that's the first time that has ever been done across the streaming platforms, where one show held the top spot for 3 weeks consecutively.
That's really amazing. And I mean, a lot of that has got to be due to like people. But at this point, you're not quite as stuck at home as we were either, like in like April and May.
Right.
Well, there's a couple of factors there, though. It is A, the pandemic. B, now you are coming into the winter months where you are inside more. Like in April and May, at least you're able to go outside and do some other things during the pandemic. And you're coming into the holiday season, too, where people are just home more naturally. And especially when you cannot go do things with your families, you're going to just be home watching TV more.
Right.
That's my theories.
Well, the other thing I was going to say, though, too, is, I mean, this show is about chess, and it's really heavily about chess. And so to have a show be that popular about something that most people don't play or don't understand, I mean, it shows you how great the story was, that you could just get that wrapped up in something that, for most people have no idea what's really going on here.
Well, and it wasn't just the fans that thought it was such a great story. This show also won 11 Emmys, thank you, including Best Anthology Series, Directing, Casting. Anya Taylor-Joy won for Best Actress. The actress who played Jolene won for Best Supporting. That'd be Moses Ingram.
Oh, really?
It won for Writing, and it won for Best Supporting Actor for the character of Benny Watts, played by Thomas Brody Sangster. So it also won 2 Golden Globes for Limited Series and Best Actress. So it was
impressive,
viewed by a lot, and also reviewed very well by quite a few people. So, and speaking of Thomas Brody Sangster, he was a character on another show that we discussed back in our movie. In our 03 month, he was Sam in Love Actually.
Yes, and now he's grown up, and it's fun to see that. So go back and listen to the Love Actually episode and hear about how both of you guys thought that Sam and his father's relationship was the best part of the movie. So clearly he's important in the movie.
Yes, he is.
And he is the guy, and I'm sure we'll get to this, but he's the guy that, if you watch the show, reminds you of David Spade.
He really
I
does.
Kept thinking
it's uncanny.
that is David Spade.
Well, and I kind of thought, like, what an interesting, like, wardrobe choice for this guy. because he's got like the hat and the trench coat and the knife and the like.
It's like Indiana Jones.
He looks like Indiana Jones going to play chess. He was just missing the whip, for crying out loud. So I thought that was a bit interesting.
Well, that's too how you think of chess as just boring, stuffy game with these old guys playing it, but you've got the main character's a girl, and you've got that guy. I mean, they bring some life and some, to quote Richard Grant from L.A. Story, they bring some verve to the characters. Verve. Go back and listen to the L.A. Story episode.
Yes. So this show was based on a novel from 1983 by Walter Tevis. Most of the filming was done in Berlin, with some of it done in Canada, but a lot of the exteriors were from Berlin. And one of the things that really made this such a great show technically was that you had a former chess champ, Garry Kasparov, and also a chess coach were writing consultants for the show. So a lot of the chess scenes that you see are actual chess moves or actual games from former world champion games that were played.
Well, I was reading that today too, how obviously you said fans liked it and critics liked it, but people that are big into chess thought it was very, very accurate and greatly done too. Like they did not have anything bad to say about it or say that, it was just fake. It was like on point with real chess and great chess.
And I know that Garry Kasparov is a great player because my criteria for what makes a great player is that it's somebody that I've heard of. And in in chess, if it's somebody that I've heard of, they must be great. It's like ice hockey too. I think the same thing.
Sure.
I've heard of that guy. They must be great.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of people you've heard of, so this I was reading about this today, and some people were like, "Is it a true story?" And it's not. But Beth Harmon, the main character, her journey is very, very similar to Bobby Fischer as far as her story and how she came up and became the U.S. champion at that time. And then she beats Borgoff, and which is like Boris Spassky, who I'm sure you've heard of, Pete.
Yes.
The guy.
Yes, I have. He's
a
great player.
It's fictional characters, but it does follow along kind of an arc of real people as well.
Right. Well, and this show was credited with a big uptick in chess. I mean,
of course,
I think because of there was already an uptick due to the pandemic and people being stuck at home. But this really kind of pushed it over the top. There was increased sales and boards and things of that nature. I, on the other hand, found myself watching documentaries and shows about chess. So, like, I watched a movie about Bobby Fischer.
Wow.
I watched a documentary about the current world champ, Magnuson, I believe is his name. Can't remember now.
Pete, have you heard of him?
No.
Can't be very good then.
That guy's no good. Pete hasn't heard of him. So anyway, for me, it's piqued my interest in just, going and watching like documentaries about real chess players and things of that nature. So it was a lot of fun. Like I say, we were able to shoot through it pretty quickly. Just a couple notes on the cast. I wanted to bring up one other cast member. The gentleman who played Harry Beltic.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
And that actor who played him is Harry Melling. Now, I don't know Harry Melling from a hole in the wall, but Pete, you may know him.
Hold on. Can we remind me which character Harry Beltic?
Beltic is the guy who she beat for the Kentucky State Championship.
And he comes to her house and he's knocking on the door and wants to help her, and he kind of likes her, but she just kind of always turns her back on him.
Okay.
His eyes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
His eyes are kind of close together, unlike hers, which are far apart.
Yeah, well, if they had kids, it would be like average, normal-looking eyes.
So I kept looking at him and like saying, God, I know that face. I know that person.
Mm-hmm.
And he
Okay.
was the kid who played Dudley Dursley in the Harry Potter movies, Pete.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
was much larger in those movies and much
Now I do
younger.
remember. Yeah,
But
okay.
the face is kind of undeniable. And so when I finally put that together, I thought, holy crap, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, because like, for our listener out there, like we were texting back and forth while each of us was watching. And of course, the gentleman who plays Benny Watts, I brought up that that's Sam from Love Actually. So I had forgotten about the Beltic guy being in Harry Potter. I'm not a huge Harry Potter guy. But yeah, I would have thought Pete would have maybe picked up on that. But like you say, he was so much younger when he played that role. So not surprising you didn't quite catch on to that one. So,
All right.
Should we just dive right in?
Yeah.
Go for it.
So the thing is, Gifford, you gave us homework to watch episode 4 because we try to keep it simple so that we're not, we have lives.
Right.
But
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, because it's a 7-episode series. It turned out we all ended up watching the whole thing over again. So,
Right.
Well, it's like I wanted to watch at least the first episode so that I get a feel for who the characters are and what's going on and everything. And then once I started that, I was invested. So I just like, well, I'm going to watch all the way through at least episode 4. And it's like, oh, it's only 7 episodes. Might as well just keep going. Plus, my wife was invested in it too.
Yeah.
So,
right.
And that's, again, being chess and everything. Me and my wife watched it together the first time back during the pandemic. And like we both were way into it as well. And it's not something you'd think that, we'd be that interested in. But it's that well done.
Well, and I picked episode 4 because after watching it, I took notes on all the episodes. And I kind of went back through my notes and thought, well, this one is a pretty transformative episode for her, and we'll get to why. But the other reason I picked it was selfishly, I thought, well, if I pick the one right in the middle, they might end up watching the whole series again. So.
Well, in my plan, after I heard Pete watched it all, I'm like, okay, well, I probably should watch. I was going to watch the first one and the last one at least, along with it. And then by that point, it's like, okay, I had time.
Spring break couldn't have come in a better time.
The other night, like Kim was busy with other stuff, so I watched 4 in a row in one night, and then by that point, it's not that hard to finish.
Right. So, starting off in episode 1, I'm just going to go through these kind of quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but we come to find that our hero Beth is an orphan. Her mom dies in a car accident. She happens to be in the car with her mom at the time, and she is sent to an orphanage. This
is in like 1963 or something, right? I mean,
this is in the 50s.
Set the time period too. It's just back in.
This is in the 50s. Yeah,
and Dad is out of the picture, so that's
right.
Why.
This is 1950s Kentucky. So we learned quite early on that at the orphanage, they give the girls 2 different pills, one for your vitamins and one to even your disposition. And that's a green pill. And we come to find out that that is a tranquilizer. So our Beth gets hooked on these green pills. She likes to take them in the evening, helps to knock her out. And that's kind of where throughout the show, you'll see this theme of drug and alcohol abuse by Beth. And this is where it kind of starts. The other thing that that starts in the very first episode is that she comes across the janitor, Mr. Scheibel, and he introduces her to the game of chess at the age of 8. So he just kind of gives her a quick lesson and gives her a book, and she's able to go through this book and just digest it all. And then with the use of her green pills at night, she can lay in her bed and look up at the ceiling and see a chessboard and pieces move. And she can that's her thinking through games and how to make everything work.
She is what you would call a prodigy.
Yes. A wonderkind.
Yes.
Yep.
Not a wonder kid like Nate. A wonderkind.
A wonderkind. Yes. Not like Nate. Not the wonder.
That's a preview of 2 weeks from now.
Yes.
One thing I want to say about Mr. Scheibel, I thought
He's
their
awesome.
relationship, I loved them both, like as almost like a father-daughter thing, but not quite. Both of them, I think, and this is a little bit of irony in a way, but they develop a relationship, I think, because both of them are both very socially distant, and they're not. He doesn't say much. He doesn't like talking to people, and she's kind of the same way. And I almost think that on some level, that's how they were able to relate to each other.
Well, thinking back,
and of course, Chess was kind of the medium for that.
I don't think we ever see him speak to another person in the show, do we?
We do. The chess teacher, he invites the chess.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's
downstairs. But I think you're right in that that's about the only other person.
Right.
And that's one of my favorite little scenes too. I think it's in the first episode because she's still the little girl. It's not Anya Taylor-Joy yet, but when the person comes and takes a picture of them, and she puts her hand on his shoulder, I just think that is so cute and so great because it's they are so distant, and she has nobody, but that little thing there just shows how much he really does mean to her, and it's really cute.
And I'm not going to totally jump to the end yet, but that does have a very important relevance in the last episode.
Yes.
I think it's the last episode, right?
The last episode is great because it really brings everything back together.
Right.
Yes.
So already in the first episode, she is able to beat Mr. Scheibel and the chess coach that he calls from a neighboring school. Chess coach comes by to see her, and she's able to beat him and the chess coach at the same time. And then she gets invited to the high school to play the chess club, where she takes on all 12 members in a simultaneous game. So there's 12 boards set up around the room, and she just walks around and plays every game all at the same time and is able to beat everybody. And then the episode ends with quite a scene in which it's come to the state's attention what this orphanage is doing with these green pills. So they are no longer allowed to give the girls their pills. So she breaks into the room where they keep
she
them.
Can see this just giant jug of them sitting there. Yeah. They're all there.
Right. So she breaks in and tries to basically steal as many green pills as she can, not only by stuffing them in her pockets, but also down her throat, which is absolutely crazy.
That was kind of a shocking scene because you're expecting her to shove them in her pocket, and then all of a sudden at the very end, she shoves them all in her mouth. Yeah. Right. Like just handfuls of them in her mouth.
And she does pass out, and you wonder if maybe she's dead or something too. So,
right.
Yep. So that's how the first episode ends. So she's been introduced to chess and has shown a great propensity for it. So
you don't really see the main character as an adult at all yet, hardly. She's in the very beginning, but this episode hardly even has Anya Taylor-Joy in it.
Right. Correct. Just in the beginning, the series actually starts in 1967 in Paris in a tournament that we will see in later episodes that she's playing in, and that's how it starts, and then it flashes back to her.
She shows up late and is like concerned there, and that's how it begins.
So the second episode starts with Anya Taylor-Joy now as the little girl. She's 13 at this point. She gets adopted. They tell the adoptive parents that she's actually she's 15 at this point. But they tell the adoptive parents that she's 13 so that she seems younger and more likely to get adopted.
One thing about the beginning of the second episode that I didn't know if I missed something or what, but they didn't really address it was a dramatic conclusion on episode 1 where she passes out, but then they just kind of jump forward in the next episode. They didn't address that at all. That
the pills.
She was just right. It's like, how did she recover? Did they have to bring her to the hospital or something, or what? You don't know. It's just they jump forward.
Pete, you don't need to know. She's just recovered, okay?
Well, and
I
that's a good
I
point,
get
Pete.
that, but that's what you're expecting, though. To
I
start
know.
this
I
second
understand.
episode
I
with.
get it totally.
But
Right.
the other good point you have there, Pete, is this is supposedly 7 years later now, because she was 8 when she got to the orphanage.
Yeah,
And now it's 7 years later. Is she clean from these green pills? Because she can't get them at the orphanage anymore. So that's the one thing that I found that you just brought up that I didn't think about before.
That's
so
what
this
the show's about, Gifford.
Thank you. You're enlightening me as we go along. I love it. So she gets adopted. And one of the main reasons that she's adopted is it's the husband travels a lot for work. He's a traveling salesman.
And he's a piece of crap.
Yes, he's a total piece of crap. And they basically adopted a daughter so that the mom would have a companion. You know,
and we learned later that the mom they had a kid. It's not clear if they lost her in while she was pregnant, or if the kid was born and died, but there was a child along the way that they had lost, and so that was traumatic for her.
And of course, the mom is, a stay-at-home mom. She has an issue with drinking, and we come to find out that she takes the exact same green pills that Beth had at the orphanage.
Now we're in the 60s too, by the way.
Yes. So we see her in school now. There's the popular girls, the cliques in the school. She doesn't have as nice of clothes as some of the other kids, and she has
really an outcast.
Yep. So she is told to go to the pharmacy to pick up her mom's pills. I can't remember what her mom called her pills, but
I don't recall.
She sees a chess magazine, which she steals. So she's got a little bit of an edge to her. This is also the episode that she enters the Kentucky State Chess Tournament. And there's a top prize of, I think, $100. She gets the money. It's a $5 entry fee. She writes to Mr. Scheibel and asks him for the money to enter. And when she wins, she'll pay him back. So he sends that to her. And she enters the tournament. And I found it interesting in the entire series, all 7 episodes, she plays her first game in that state tournament, and this is the only time she plays against another woman. There's another girl that enters the tournament.
Like the very first game, right?
Yep, the very first game.
And that's another person who makes an appearance later on in kind of a really hard scene to watch.
Yep. Right. And the great thing here again, so throughout this show, Beth really does get kind of shepherded along by some very nice people that are there at the right time. So you got Mr. Scheibel who teaches her chess and helps her out, and the chess coach bringing her along and having her play the team. And now at this tournament, she runs into this girl in the very first game, and the girl helps her, just kind of tells her how tournament chess works. Like, here's a clock and here's paper to write down your moves, and just all the basics that you probably wouldn't know if you didn't actually
if you're just playing informally, I guess.
And they're not very
pickup chess
nice to her at first, but she also meets Matt and Mike, who I think are pretty great characters, because they're like very easygoing, fun guys and very nice. And at first they don't take her seriously, but they become people who obviously everybody thinks she's amazing.
Well, and the thing is, the running theme is that she's a woman, and this is kind of a man's world. No women play chess.
Right.
Well, not only is she a woman, but she's like 14 years old.
Right, exactly.
She's a girl.
And so, but then she has to earn their respect, and of course she does by just being able to kick everybody's ass. And,
and this is where she meets a few characters that will be in the run of the series. She plays D.L. Towns.
Yeah, who's
a rather good-looking older gentleman who she finds very attractive.
He looks exactly like Oscar Isaac.
Really?
Oh yeah. Like every time I look at him, I'm like, I know this guy. He's from something, but he's not. But he looks like Oscar Isaac from Star Wars and all kinds of other movies.
Yep. So she plays him and pretty much mops the floor with him. And then she has to play Beltic, who is Dudley, right, from the Harry Potter movies. She plays him for the championship. And of course, at this scene, he comes in late. Everybody's waiting. He's all cocky. What's the point? I'm just going to mop the floor with this girl. And, she turns the tables on him and basically just runs him out of the room. So that is how the second episode ends, is with her winning the Kentucky State Championship.
And her mom, too, then, is not too much, doesn't really care much about her playing chess. But when she learns how much money she can actually make, then she becomes much more interested in. And because she's supportive, too. Like, I think the mom really cares. But obviously, that's what really makes her realize, oh, you can make money doing this. That's pretty great.
Right.
What exactly was it, though, in there that happened to the dad? Did he get arrested or something? Or what was it that she got a phone call?
He just traveling.
The stepdad.
He just left.
But there was a reason that he just left.
Yeah.
I didn't know, because both Jenny and I were like, what did that phone call say again? Because, like, did he get in trouble or
no, he's just a piece of crap. He just left his family.
So yeah, and you see later he wanted nothing to do with her ever. The second they brought her home, he just walked upstairs and left her. The whole thing was for his wife, to shut her up, in his own words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it gets worse and worse later on when we find out more stuff that happens, like with the mom and everything.
Well, and with the mom, I don't know which was more important to her, the fact that she has a cash cow now and a daughter that can make money, or is she really happy for her and really looking to make sure that she's able to get to these tournaments and get better and everything like that?
I feel like it's both.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think that I was just going to say, I had written down, she was an interesting character. I think she had kind of two layers to her, right? She had a side that was selfish and just needed to do her own thing. And maybe it's like any one of us, right? Everyone needs kind of their downtime. You need to sit down and have a drink or have a beer or whatever. At the same time, she was pretty loving and supportive. And I don't think that it was just because of the money. I think that she actually did develop a relationship with her. So she did kind of have two sides that you could kind of relate to both sides.
Well, and part of her deal, too, I mean, she's clearly chemically dependent as well, and I mean that's part of her problem with just getting through life and getting through the days. And you see, and when we get to episode 4, it leads to her death. So I mean, that would explain her kind of back and forth and maybe different moods and things as we go.
Right. Well, and she, married the wrong guy and is basically just left at home to fend for herself.
A terrible, abusive relationship, emotionally, if not physically.
Right. Yep. So, episode 3. So at the beginning of these episodes, a lot of times there'll be flashbacks to when Beth is really young with her birth mom. And you just kind of hear stuff from her birth mom. Her mom is a PhD. She's a very smart woman, but she has some mental issues. Her birth father is estranged as well at this point. And you're always, these scenes that you see the birth mom in, she's really on the ragged edge of not knowing how to get by in life with this young daughter. So the beginning of the third episode, we see a flashback, and then she goes to Cincinnati in 1963 to a bigger tournament. So at this point, the mom calls the school, says she's sick, she's got the mumps, her mom's really not interested in her going to school. She's interested in her being able to go to these chess tournaments. So this is the first time that she meets Benny Watts. She plays a Grand Master for the championship of that tournament, and of course wins it. And now instead of taking buses to these tournaments, now they're flying around the country. So she's making real good money, being able to win these tournaments. This is the first episode where on the plane, her mom gives her a sip of alcohol. So she's taken the green pills from her mom, now she's being introduced to alcohol.
This is what it was. Not a martini. It was a what do you call it? It is
Gibson?
a martini. It's a Gibson, yes,
Yep.
which is the same as a martini, except it has an onion, not an olive.
Right.
Is the way I understood it. Right. So anyway, go on.
So she's beginning to get some notoriety. She gets interviewed by Life magazine. They take a bunch of pictures, and the interviewer brought up apophenia, which is a condition in which you're able to find patterns where there are none. And the interviewer was kind of wondering whether or not she may have that. And of course, through this whole thing, you're seeing her taking drugs, these pills, and that helps her to visualize the chess moves, on the ceiling or
The
whatever.
patterns.
It seems that she really is. These two things are intertwined. Her ability to do well while being medicated. So she's still in high school at this point. Now that she's getting notoriety, the popular girls ask her to come over. They have social clubs, and they want her to be in their clubs. So she goes over to try it out. Her mom would like her to be, more socially out and about. So she goes to this girl's house. She does not fit in, does not understand, like they're watching TV, and I don't remember what band comes on the TV, and all the girls go crazy and jump up and they're dancing
singing just like normal teenage girls would do when it was not the Beatles, but it was like the Beatles. Basically, they were I don't know, it might have been the was it the Monkees maybe or something, but they made reference, I thought, later on at least to the Monkees, but I'm not sure if that was the band, but you get the idea.
So she skips out of there, but before she does, she stops by the dad's liquor cabinet and steals a bottle of booze and hightails it out of there. And this episode ends with her and her mom going to Vegas for the U.S. Chess Championships, where she meets up again with Benny Watts. And this is the first time that she loses a chess match that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Also in this episode, she runs into Towns again. He's a reporter at this point. He's kind of given up the chess game. And it's very apparent that Beth has a thing for him. And they go back up to his room. And of course, time and time again throughout this show, you're thinking like, okay, somebody's going to do something bad to her. Like, the first episode, here's the lonely janitor down in the basement of an orphanage. What's he going to do to her? Well, he doesn't molest her, do anything bad. He teaches her chess. Here's another case where, let's go up to the room, older gentleman, younger girl. And he really wanted to do an interview. He really wanted to take pictures for this interview. And then we come to find out that he is in fact gay. His roommate stops in, and so she's a little crushed by that. But again,
he also looked like he was
thinking
of actually like coming on
right.
her and kissing her at the same time.
It did, but again,
he was confused.
You're right. He was confused, and she was hurt, because she was hoping something would happen there. So that's kind of the way that third episode ends, is with her first loss at the U.S. Championships in Vegas, and that was, let me see, that was in 1966. So now we get on to the fourth episode. It's become apparent that the best players in the world of chess come from Russia. So she is taking classes at a local community college in Russian, so she can learn how to speak Russian. And this episode's kind of interesting because she still has not graduated high school at this point. But she runs into, people from her class, and she decides to go to a house party, and she smokes weed for the first time, and she has sex for the first time. But
she does call her mom to check in while she's there.
So she was honest with her too. Yep. Like she did actually give a little bit of a lie the next morning and said that she had gone out, whatever the other kids did,
Mhm.
but really she just stayed around the house and just kind of hung out,
Yeah,
enjoyed the alone time.
right. She was smoking
But it
weed and
wasn't
drinking
that
at
big
the
of a deal.
apartment. Clean
Yes,
the apartment because this is a college apartment. With
and it
God
was
knows how
after a
many people.
party. Yes,
Yep.
yeah.
So yeah, she's taking her alone time. She's enjoying herself, and partaking in a few extra things, as far as the drinking and the smoking go. And then she comes back. She graduates high school. Her mom gifts her a Bulova watch, which she wears for the rest of the the series. And they also celebrate with champagne.
Mhm.
And then they move on to a tournament in Mexico City. This is 1966 still. And her mom is extremely excited to go to this tournament in particular because when she was younger, she had a pen pal, Manuel, and she reconnected with him, and she's going to meet up with Manuel in Mexico City.
And basically, she spends all her time with him and
Right.
kind of ignores Beth at this point.
Doing you know what?
Mm-hmm. She's living it up with Manuel. She's having a really good time. But one of the big lessons that she learns in this episode from her mom is that it's not all about chess. It's
Yeah, she tells her to relax.
You need to go out to these cities. You're traveling to these amazing places. You need to go to the restaurants. You need to go to the museums. You need to hang out with people and become more of a complete person. And that was a really big thing that she takes in from this episode.
She tries. She goes to a park, but she ends up looking bored and starts drinking.
Starts
while
drinking.
she's there.
Yep. She starts drinking again, and of course she sees the Russian champion. What's that?
Oh, Matt and Mike. I was going to say she meets them again there.
Yep, but that's a nice scene too because she goes swimming with them. They're hanging out. They're having fun.
Yeah, they're great.
But this is where she also runs into Barkov, the Russian champion, world champion. Yep.
Barkov.
So she basically just cruises right through these the competition until she
but hang on now. Before she gets to him, she plays this 13-year-old Russian prodigy.
Yep.
And
that's true.
It's a game that takes 2 days, and I love that because this kid he's so cute. Like you can tell he's westernized, and he asks her about going to a drive-in and watching a movie in your car, and he thinks it's so cool. But then she asks him what he wants to be, and he says he wants to be world champion at 16. And she says, well, what are you going to do after that? And like he just has no idea. He's just like,
what do you mean?
What are you talking about? Like he's 16 years old, and his whole life is becoming world champion of chess, and he has no clue what the rest of his life would be like after that, and it's kind of sad.
Right. Side note on what you just said, that this happened a couple of times throughout the series. I don't get why a chess match takes 2 days when they are timed and have a total of like 90 minutes, right? They always have the clock.
That's a really good point, Pete.
And so it shouldn't take any more than a couple hours.
Yeah.
Well, if you play if you play more than one match in a day, I think she was playing 2 matches a day. So if you go too late, they'll be like, well, we'll just break here and, stop clocks.
They did that. But it should take like a maximum of 3 hours, right?
I would guess.
Wasn't it 90 minutes per person?
I think that's something what it is.
Unless the different tournaments have different time limits too.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
right.
But it just that's one thing that kind of stuck out in my head.
I think that was kind of to set up what happens in the final episode, to show that a game can be paused. You have to put your move in and seal it, and then you adjourn, and then you come back. So that plays a huge role in the final episode as well. One of the things I did like about that match that she played with that young kid was the little gamesmanship she was playing with him. Like she would make her move, and then she'd have to wait for him, and she would walk away and sit down and tap her foot. And then she'd walk all the way over to the other side, just keep watching him, just to throw this kid off of his game. He wasn't quite sure what to do with himself.
Well, and was it before this where somebody had done that to her too, where the guy got up and like left and went to the bathroom or something, and it just she was winning basically, and it just totally threw her off. That was the game she lost for the first time, right?
I believe, was that against Benny?
I think so. And whoever it was, like left the game for a while, and it just threw
her off. So she learned from that.
Right.
Yeah.
She understood that that can throw your opponent off, and so that's exactly why she did what she did.
Yep. So this one comes down to the championship between her and Borgoff. She loses, and one of the things I watched for the second time through is to see her starting position, if she started as black or if she started as white. Because if you start as white, you get to move first, which gives you a massive advantage. And she drew black in this one, which, if you listen to professional chess players and everything like that, drawing white is like such a massive advantage.
They explained that anytime two computers will play against each other, the one that starts as white will always win.
Right.
That was one of the points they brought up, which I didn't know they had chess playing computers back in the mid 60s.
Chess playing computers.
I didn't know. Maybe they did.
Maybe where they started.
But
so the end of this episode, she comes back up to the room and finds her mother has passed. Her mom just laid down on the bed and she just didn't wake up. She died of hepatitis. They didn't say A, B, or C or whatever, but
they chalked it up mostly to her alcoholism.
To her alcohol.
Contributed to, yeah. But it was kind of, you knew that something was going to happen to her because the foreshadowing, she was always coughing throughout the first few episodes. And so you knew she was going to get sick somehow.
Right.
And that was it. I didn't expect her to die suddenly like she did.
No.
I thought it was going to be like cancer or something, and then it was going to be an ongoing thing that she was going to have to deal with. And nope, she did.
Right. So she calls her dad, the adoptive dad, and he is absolutely no help. He doesn't offer to pay to fly the body back.
Oh, this is where he turns into a real piece of crap.
Just nothing at all. Like he just doesn't even care. He's done with the family, and that's it. The other interesting thing was she went to a Mexican pharmacy and to get those green pills, and the guy he gave her so many pills, and all she finished was with moss. She just wanted more pills, so now she's getting in to the pills again.
Buys the drugs on the way out of town.
Yep. So that's pretty much episode 4. Episode 5, she gets back to Kentucky. She fixes the house up. What is it? Beltic, he comes and helps her, coaches her up, teaches her how to read through old matches, and tells her she can't attack all the time. Just really getting her more into just helping her train to play better. Then she goes to the 67 U.S. Championships, where she meets Benny again. And this time she's able to beat him. The interesting thing in this one is another training thing that she learns how to do is speed chess, which she isn't good at the beginning. Benny beats her every time. But Benny offers to train her for the Worlds, so that she needs to come to New York City and stay with him, and he will help train her so that she's able to perform better.
He has been to Russia. He had played in it before, so that's his expertise.
Right. But before that, she's going to Paris. Back to that tournament we saw at the very first thing we saw in episode 1 was her in Paris. So episode 6, they're in New York City in Benny's apartment. The thing that killed me is Benny's supposedly the best U.S. chess player, and he lives in this dumpy little basement apartment in New York City.
It's like
Because
a
all he
nuclear
focused on
war,
was-
like fallout
Yeah.
shelter.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, just cement walls. There's like a shower in the living room and just one little bedroom, and
Doesn't have any furniture or a bed for her to sleep on or a couch or
Right.
anything. She has to sleep on the floor.
Well, it's an air
but
mattress.
it's
Yep.
sure. But it just shows that he doesn't care anything about anything else. All he needs is the chessboard.
Exactly, right.
And
He didn't care.
right.
That's it. It was all his focus, all his attention was just on chess.
hmm
And his Indiana Jones outfits.
Yeah, that's right.
So at this point, she goes to. Oh, first off, let me back up just 1 second. So, she's able to get better at the speed chess. She plays 3 different players at the same time, knocks them all out. That even includes Benny. And then, of course, they have sex as well, her and Benny.
Yes.
She
And
has-
this is
Yep.
good sex because she had not experienced that before and she like enjoyed it.
right.
That's a big deal to her there. So it's
And the funny thing there is after sex, they're laying there, and Benny starts talking right
About
away
chess.
about chess, and she's like, "You're really talking about chess right now? Like we just had sex? Like that doesn't seem to make any sense." So now she heads off to Paris in 1967. Here we see her enjoying the city, going to museums. Doesn't seem that she's taking the pills anymore. And she's really cleaned herself up. She's not drinking.
well, he
that time-
forced her to. That
Yep.
was part of the
That time
deal.
with Benny, yep, really
She was
straightened
not
her-
allowed to drink while she was with him.
Right. So everything's going quite well for her in Paris until she runs into Chloe, who's a model that she met at Benny's apartment. And Chloe, of course, coaxes her into drinking. And, once she has that first drink, she's off the wagon and she's off and running. So she has a crazy night. We come to find out she sleeps with Chloe, and therefore she's late to her big match with Bargov.
Bargov.
Thank you. Now, did either of you think the Russians put Chloe up to that?
Yes.
I did not, but I guess I can see that.
That's what I thought, that she was put up to it by.
I thought she
Wow.
was
That was
too.
the plan. They wanted to make her drunk. And
I
Throw
guess
her
I
off
didn't
her
think of that
game.
because Chloe really liked her in New York, and I guess I just thought they were. But I get it.
I thought so too, but I kind of wondered if the Russians put her up to that. So she gets to her match late. She's hungover.
Communists.
She's way off her game, and of course she gets beat again. So now she heads back home. Her dad tries to get the house back from her. He shows up thinking he can get the house back. There's a big thing there, just showing how much of a piece of crap he is. She gets the invite to go to Russia, and she just goes on a big honking bender at this point.
No, at
Beltic
this
comes
point,
over.
Sorry, she's living like a rock star at this point.
Right.
I mean,
Well, there's
she's
a great
drugs,
scene
alcohol.
To the song Venus, where she just dances around, and that song, is awesome, and that's a really cool scene.
In her living room, in her underwear, and she's just getting drunk, and then she falls and knocks herself out.
Yep.
Right. Well, and is this the episode where she goes back to the Kentucky State Championship just for pictures and
Oh
whatnot,
yeah,
and she
yeah. This
runs
is where I mentioned
into-
earlier, so that the girl she first met and beat comes back to see her and thinking this is going to be great, and she just looks like hell, and she's got this weird makeup on, and she's just not nice,
strung out
to anybody, and doesn't have a clue what's going on. And this is, like I said, it's hard to watch all these episodes in a row because she just keeps making these. She always falls back into these horrible decisions,
Right.
and it's like that's tough to watch.
Yep. But at the end of this episode, her good friend Jolene, who we meet in the orphanage in the first episode and a little bit in the beginning of the second episode, Jolene shows up at her door to save the day, to get her cleaned up and help her get back on the straight and narrow. So now we're
And I
into
love that. The thing about the last episode here is that this series needed like a happier feel good ending, and you get it. And Jolene is great because she is a mess at the orphanage, and you assume she's going to never be anything, and turns out she became something great, and
she's going on to become a lawyer,
and helps her out, and she really changes her life, and that's great.
So we have a scene in this one. We find out that Mr. Scheibel has passed. Jolene tells Beth that, so they head back to the orphanage or for his funeral. They go back to the orphanage, and Beth goes down into the basement, and she sees this board that Mr. Scheibel put together of all the news clippings of her throughout the years going on and winning.
I love that.
And on that board is the picture that the chess coach had taken
with her hand on his shoulder.
With her,
in the first episode, yes.
And she takes that as a keepsake and heads on out of there with Jolene. So she needs funding to get over to Russia.
Hold on. Importantly, it's really the first time that she shows emotion, because when she takes that picture, she gets back in the car and she just breaks down crying. And
that is
and
true.
It's like it does show that she there's something in there. Like the whole series, she seemed like she was just, didn't have much for emotion at all.
She would show anger.
She would show anger, but where she really broke down and started crying there.
So she needs money to get over to Russia. There was an opportunity where this Christian charity group was going to give her a bunch of money to get there, but she'd have to basically say stuff that she didn't agree with, so she turned them down. So Jolene helps her out. Jolene's got some money to get her over to Moscow for this trip. So in Moscow, she plays a tournament against all these grandmasters, including Brad
Borgov.
Thank you.
Well, he's the final one.
He's the final one. So basically, she has to play, is it 4 different matches against these other gentlemen?
And I can't remember his name, but the dude with the long hair that's the really old chess guy.
Yep.
That is such a great scene, too, where he just makes her feel so good at the end after she beats him.
He respects her.
It's just, you just feel so good in this last episode, and you don't get to feel that hardly at all until this episode.
Right. Well, and at this point, one of the fun things I thought during this episode is that every time, so she wins her first match and she leaves wherever they play the chess and goes outside to get in her car, and there's, a smattering of people.
Russian girls.
You're right. And then the next time she wins, she comes out and there's more people and more people. Every time she wins, she gets a bigger following in Russia.
But they're all girls because she's such an inspiration to these young girls who can't do anything like that.
Right. So the interesting thing here is that Towns is there again doing his reporting. So she has a friendly face there to talk to. And this is where you get into that adjournment rule again. So one of the big things that Benny had taught her is how the Russians work as teams. Like they're not individuals. Like if there's an adjournment, they will spend the time together as a team to figure out the best play.
And she oversees them doing that in the hotel.
Correct.
And peeks in on them.
So during this adjournment in her game with Borgov. Thank you. Towns is there, and he sets up a call back to New York where you've got Benny and Beltic and the two Matt and Mike are there, and they're all on the phone.
But this is so great because Benny had written her off. Like he gave up on her and said, you're just a mess. And this is another awesome scene because they're all sitting there. They know what's happening, and it's so nice.
Yep. And they all devise...
He's pissed at her because she turned down that money from the Catholic organization, right? Or the church.
Well, and she was drinking again, and he knew she was drunk,
yeah.
And that's where because that was his thing. You're not drinking.
Right. So that's a great scene because they're all together on the phone, and they're working through this, this match and trying to give her the best opportunity to win. And then the other big thing is she goes back to that match. she's completely sober at this point, and she's able to look up at the ceiling and see all the chess moves on the ceiling, like she did throughout the series, but while she was on the green pills. Now she's clear-minded and still able to get that ability. So she's able to beat Borgov and become the world champion. And it's just an amazing ending. The thing I loved about the ending was so she comes out of the building after the last match. There's people everywhere. They're all going nuts. And she gets in the car to go to the airport with her State Department guy. And she asked to get out of the car and just to go for a walk in Moscow. And she gets out, and her jacket, she has a white jacket on and a white like stocking cap type hat. And when it's all
that
the way
kind of Russian hat, like
right.
Costanza's in Seinfeld, kind of, but not quite as big. That
sure,
fluffy Russian, hat.
Right. So it's
like this
for our viewers. So the interesting thing is when it's got a high collar, so when you zip it up and she's walking down the street, she looks like the White Queen chess piece.
Yes. I picked that up. I had that written down exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you guys would pick up on that, and
I did not.
Jenny,
no.
She did not pick up on that either.
I just picked up on how stylish she is because she's so stylish.
Right.
So much show, and that outfit, that white outfit, is
the
just
little
like
ball on the top of the head.
Right, the ball on the top of the cap. Yeah, and that was just that's such a great visual to end this series because, of course, the most powerful position is the white, and the most powerful piece on the board is the queen. So after winning the world championship, she has become the White Queen. And it's just a sweet final scene. She's walking through a park with all these street chess players, and they all know who she is, and they're all crowding around her. All these men, are crowding around her, and this one gentleman looks at her sitting at his table and just asks her to play a game, and that's how it ends. She sits down and crosses her fingers under her chin, and that's the end of the series. So it's such a wonderful, wonderful show. It's nice to see how she's able to overcome the chemical dependencies that she has. The fact that her mother dies in a car accident. You come to find out that the mom intentionally got into that accident, trying to kill her and her daughter in the back seat. So yeah, she was definitely up against it, and she rose up rather quickly. So I really enjoyed the entire series. I was more than happy to watch it a second time in preparation for this.
Yeah, I got sucked
when
in
you
again.
First brought it up, and I had watched maybe 5 minutes of it a long time ago and just never really got into it. But at first, you think, oh my God, this is just one of those artsy fartsy, kind of shows, and it's not going to interest me, and it's boring, and it's about chess, and really it is really great. It's really well done. All the characters are interesting, and I loved every minute of it.
They're in the top 10 on Netflix, Pete. They're not usually, even the artsy fartsy ones are still things that people really get into. So
right.
Well, that's true. But anyway,
although I will say I was quite disappointed in Bridgerton because I watched the first season of that with my wife, and it just never got to what I just didn't quite get into the hype of it. So
I did not watch that one. Courtney did.
And now there's the second season.
I was going to say the second season's out now, right? I thought I saw that was out.
But outside of that, usually, they're all really cool shows.
Right. Did you guys have anything else on the series?
I don't. It's one of those shows. So we've got coming up here, just a little spoiler alert. We all picked TV shows because that's what we did throughout the pandemic. And it's one of those shows that it was great just to pass a little bit of time. And it was something that my wife and I both got into and could watch together. And so, it's one of those good shows that I'll remember for that reason.
Totally agree. Loved it.
Awesome. Well,
all right.
We are going to round out this episode with our top 5 movies of 2020.
which was not easy to do.
No, wasn't a lot
Pretty
that came
terrible
out in
idea in
2020 for
retrospect,
new
yeah.
movies. But I was
Nothing,
able to.
well, things took a hit, but few things took as big of a hit as the movie industry during that year.
Right. Yeah, restaurants and movie theaters. Yeah, any entertainment venue is definitely going to take a big hit.
Yeah.
So who would like to go first?
Let me get mine out of the way first because it's not
right.
it's not a great list. I only have 3 movies and they're all just kind of a stretch.
Wow,
the first
3
one
movies.
I have is actually the first. Well, because as we discussed before the show, the movies that I did watch were all at home and everything. Most of it we watched the whole Avengers series, and the whole Star Wars series, and everything else that I watched was pretty much for this podcast, which would have been from other years, and it was like older stuff. And so there's only a couple of movies that actually from 2020 that I've actually seen. It's just starting from the bottom. I had the Borat movie, the subsequent movie film, which was it. I definitely enjoyed some parts of it.
It's
and
okay.
It was funny. It was not nearly as good as the first one, though. But it was on my list. The second one I have, and actually Brad and I have some memories of this one because we saw it live on the same night together in Chicago. Hamilton. They had the Disney movie.
Oh, the Hamilton movie.
Hamilton. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, which we enjoyed as a family as well. It was on Disney Plus, and I think it still is. And so, so that was a good one. The number one, though, which for me, it was the top movie, and it was it legitimately is a top movie of the year, was The Trial of the Chicago 7.
Nice.
Which I thought was just a fantastic movie. You should watch it if you have not seen it.
I have not seen it. I'll have to watch it.
I'll take that and go next since this is GIF's episode, and I have that too. So just to show how, usually me and you both, GIF, have really long honorable mention lists.
Mm-hmm.
I was really scraping the barrel here. These are some movies that I watched that, like, in a normal year, I wouldn't even register.
Right.
But the movie The Invisible Man was pretty good.
I got that on my...
The Call of the Wild with Harrison Ford. Yeah, it's fine. My kid read that book that year, so we watched it. I wrote Borat down too, and then the other one is Scoob, the live-action Scooby movie. Or no, it wasn't live action. It was like computer animated Scooby-Doo. And seriously though, it wasn't bad. And I remember because we watched it outside on our projector in the backyard, so that made it a little more fun.
I like that.
For the top 5, I got Pete. You probably don't remember this, but the very first podcast episode we ever recorded with Dave, I had just watched the movie Palm Springs on Hulu, and I brought it up on that because Andy Samberg is the star of it, and I asked him if he had watched it yet. And it's Andy Samberg, and it's the girl from How I Met Your Mother, Christina Milioti. And it's like a Groundhog Day movie, and it's a good movie, but normally it wouldn't be a top 5 movie for me, but that was all there was.
Yep.
At 4, this is even worse. I combined 2 of those like random holiday movies just because I didn't see much else. So there was a movie called Holidate on Netflix, which me and Kim watched, which was kind of funny. And then there was a movie called Happiest Season, which starred Dan Levy, but he was actually a supporting character. And I just put those 2 together because we watched them both during the holiday season, and they were like fun to watch, but they're no great movies. They're like your random Netflix holiday of the year movie.
Mm-hmm.
The top 3, though, these are 3 movies I seriously liked. And I've talked about number 3 many times, and Gifford, you watched it, the movie Freaky.
Mm-hmm.
I love that movie. I thought it was hilarious. We laughed. It was so good. Number 2, I had The Trial of the Chicago 7 too. And just looking ahead, that movie was written by Aaron Sorkin, who created The West Wing.
Yes.
Next week. And it is fantastic. And by the way, starring Pete, from one of the other movies we just mentioned, who's in there that has a great role.
Oh, the guy from
Borat.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Borat, yeah.
Put me on the
Sacha
spot.
Baron Cohen.
Yes, Sacha Baron Cohen. And then my number one, so there were 2 movies that I thought were just fantastic. That was one. And the other one that I guess you guys haven't watched, or at least Pete hasn't watched, is Promising Young Woman. And that was an amazing movie. Do you not even know what I'm talking about? It
No.
was up for all the award. Oh my God. It stars oh God, I'm totally blanking on her name right now. But it's about this girl
saw it on the list.
whose friend had like killed herself after being like abused by these college guys. And she basically spends her life like trying to make up for that for her friend. Carey Mulligan. Carey Mulligan is the star.
Yep.
And if you haven't watched it, you got to watch it. It's just a fantastic movie. It's a great story, and I loved it. So those two were like legit. Any year those would be great movies.
Okay.
So that's it.
Awesome. Well, I had Invisible Man on my honorable mention. Also, Sound of Metal was.
I have not watched that yet. That's been on my list forever. That's
a pretty good movie. Yeah, it's about a drummer who loses his hearing.
Okay, that's one I'm going to see someday.
Yep. On my dishonorable mention list, I had Wonder Woman 1984.
Yes.
Oh God, yeah.
Huge.
It's a movie that I saw. That I was like, well, it's a movie that I saw, but I couldn't even put it on my list. It was,
and it was so
terrible.
You're waiting all year for new movies to come out.
Yep.
And during Christmas, that came out, and the Pixar movie Soul came out, and I just could not get into. I didn't like that either. And
I didn't watch Soul.
As a family, we're like, we got these movies to watch finally. It's going to be great, and they just Wonder Woman sucked.
It was
the Wonder
awful.
Woman movie,
and
that
Soul
was the first one
just,
I think that we went to in the theater after the pandemic or during.
Oh,
the pandemic.
That's right. You went in the theater. I remember that.
Yeah.
We watched
Courtney and I started watching Wonder Woman, and that opening scene in the mall. I looked at her. I go, so they're making a movie about Wonder Woman already in the movie? Like, I thought it was supposed to be a farcical look at Wonder Woman. Like, they made a movie about Wonder Woman, like, in that universe. I was like, this is god awful.
The only thing I liked was the mall part at the beginning, because it had that look of 84, like
right.
From there, it just was terrible.
Yeah, not a good. And I mean, the first one was so good. And then they dropped the ball big time.
Not the last 15 minutes, though. It kind of started to go downhill already at the end of the first one, I thought.
I agree. It was too long and too ridiculous.
Yeah, there's a few plot holes in the first
one.
But
up until the last scene, it was awesome. I loved it.
So that's
where it got far-fetched in the last 15 minutes.
Right. My number 5, a movie that I enjoyed watching but did not understand a second of it, was Tenet. That was very hard to wrap my head around. That. Oh my God, Christopher Nolan, I think at this point is just throwing stuff out just to throw some, because Memento you could follow.
Yeah.
Like, that was awesome. Tenet, there's so many different time loops that you're dealing with in that movie. I don't know. I don't know if I watched it again, if I would get more out of it, or if it would just confuse me more. But
I haven't seen it, but I would recommend not watching it again.
That was a tough one. My number 4, I Care a Lot. That was a movie with Rosamund Pike, Peter Dinklage, and she's a
nurse, right?
No, she's a legal guardian.
Yeah, I remember seeing that on whatever it was on.
I shouldn't say never, but I wanted so many bad things to happen to her character throughout, because she's such a horrible person. Basically, she finds older people that don't really have family, and she uses the courts to force them into her becoming their legal guardian, and then just milks them dry financially. She's just a putrid. The character's awful. My number 3 was Freaky.
Nice. It's like a bingo.
Yep. So Brad got me into this movie. It's a wonderful flick. As a horror movie guy, there were so many nods to so many of the other horror movies, like Friday the 13th and just all kinds of them. So that was a lot of fun. My number 2 was the Borat subsequent movie.
Well, we all had that in some way, then I guess.
I did enjoy it. I love the commentary, and just the stuff he tries to get into. The scene with the two guys in the cabin, that whole thing I thought was awesome.
It's amazing he hasn't been murdered.
Murdered, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard stuff like that at that rally. Like he was in some trouble at that rally.
Yeah,
like it was
I bet.
touch and go.
Yeah.
And then my number one was a movie called The Hunt. And that starred Betty Gilpin. She was on Glow, a show that I watched on Netflix. And it is kind of a horror movie where unsuspecting people are dropped off in the middle of the field and hunted for sport. And that was
dangerous game.
Yes. So that was kind of a fun movie. Again, not a lot of stuff came out. But I enjoyed that one. I think that was one that was the release was delayed because there was a mass shooting very close to the release date, and it was delayed because of that. But
well, Giff, I think me and Pete would both agree that you definitely would love The Trial of the Chicago 7.
I'm writing her down.
And I think you both should watch Promising Young Woman. Those are the best movies of the year. So.
Well, I see it. What's it on? Is it on Netflix?
Which one?
Trial of Chicago 7.
Yeah, that one. It was a Netflix movie. That's where it was.
Yeah. I see it on the feed all the time. I just never clicked
the other
on
one
it to watch it.
Was on HBO. I don't know if it still is, but
okay,
it was on there.
I thought I saw it on there the other night when I was flipping through stuff. So what are we getting into next week? Pete?
We got. Oh, I mentioned The West Wing. That's not till next month.
That's where I was confused. I thought you said
next month.
But actually, I think we're going to be talking about Schitt's Creek.
Yeah, we got Pete's choice.
That is correct.
If my schedule is correct. So looking forward to that. One of the funniest. It's a little bit lighter than Queen's Gambit.
A little bit.
So it ended in 2020. So that's why we're going to be talking about the last two episodes, but we'll talk about the whole series.
Not only did it end, but I think we all watched the whole series during that year. So
that's correct. Yep. That's correct.
Some of us more than once.
Very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, excellent pick. I'm looking forward to going over that.
I was going to pick it someday, so I'm glad you did it.
Yeah.
All right. Gifford, what's another name for a bishop?
A preacher.
A preacher, right? And in chess, they're all aligned in a what?
A roll.
I just thought of that. I didn't write that in ahead of time.
I can tell.
Good ad-libbing, Pete.
All right. Well, that I guess that spells Preacher Row then, doesn't it? So let's put on a little Preacher Row.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.
Checkmate.
No one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your son is gone. 7 steps and it will be my last. And start to me on my back. I turn and I look to you. I'm scared but there's nothing